Hey everyone, this is Jane with Barlow Herbal, and happy Sunday, June 2nd of 2024. Once we get through this month, we have a full half of this year done and over. And to me, that seems like, wow, this world still goes on no matter what comes at us, what gets thrown at us, what happens to us or for us or because of us. I think that we live so caught up in these times that we forget to take a minute, take a breath, realize our blessings, and just the sheer beautiful act of gratitude and presence that we just need to remind ourselves, right? So I have a really great message for you today that was really inspired by one of my favorite mentors. And this is a person who I discovered probably 20 or 25 years ago when I was really starting to dive deep into how can I be a better human? How can I be a better mother? How can I be a better worker, business owner, in everything that matters? When you start doing personal development, you find these mentors and these teachers. And the person I'm talking about is Jim Rohn. And many of you are probably familiar with him. He's no longer living on this physical plane, but he is definitely still a living, breathing work of art because of all of the content that he left and the teachings. And you can find his stuff all over YouTube. You can still get downloads of almost everything that he's taught. You can get his books. This is a person who has had a huge impact in my life, and he came into my awareness just recently because one of my sisters and I were having a conversation, and she brought up a quote that he said, because a few of my sisters have been on the same personal development path, and Jim Rohn was one of those first people that we connected in with, and it was like, okay, wow, he's dropping some wisdom that is absolutely timeless. So I thought it would be just a really amazing thing to share some of his core teachings and a couple of quotes that I found and how they have affected me and my life. And I'm just going to kind of wing it with some situations as they come to me. But I will share with you, I had a really beautiful event happen in my life last weekend. I actually filmed my Sunday message a couple of days early because I was invited to this retreat in out of state. It was in the woods. There were 13 people there. It was this beautiful gathering of like-minded health warriors, people who want to make a difference in the world and who have been out there doing that. And it was just this beautiful event where the connection was so high when we all got together on that first night that it was an immediate rise in consciousness for all of us. And the conversations that happened, the connections that happened, the impact that we each want to have in the world was really dialed in. And it was such a beautiful weekend that in a way I'm still kind of processing all of the things. I took a lot of notes in my journal. And I made some connections with people that I'd seen, but I'd never actually spent time in their physical presence. And I was really, really honored to be invited to this group because it was such a special group of like-minded souls who want to have an impact. Because I think at the end of the day, we all not only want to find our tribe, but we all want to have an impact. We all want to affect our community, our family, no matter how small or large it is, we all want to have an impact. And we all realize at this point, I think anybody watching this realizes that we are in really pivotal times. And I think and I say this so often, but I think it's really true. I know that it's true. We are in humanity consciousness changing times. We get to not only witness it, we get to participate. And here's the thing, my hope is that not only will you witness it and participate, but participate on a level that you will be able to look back and go, I am so glad that I listened to this inner piece of myself when I was in a situation where maybe I should have spoken up. Because I would say that now is the time more than ever when you see things or you hear things or you're in a conversation with someone and you hear something that's not true, speak up, say your truth. I think this is more important now than absolutely ever before. It doesn't have to be aggressive. It doesn't have to be confrontational. It doesn't even have to dive into everything that you know. It can be a simple statement of what you know to be true. Someone speaking of something they believe, they see, they hear, they watch something that's happening on the news or in the world, and they have an opinion about it, and it maybe is completely polar opposite than your perspective. You can always say something. And what I find are those little moments, you never know when you're going to spark something in someone else, because we are in the thick of a huge, great awakening. And there are many people who don't see it. And we all know this is true, right? In fact, one of the people that I got to meet, he's very much a public figure. His name, and it's for considering the things that I love to look at and study, and the fact that I've never come across this person, I was actually really shocked. So this is a person named Dannion Brinkley, and many of you might have heard of him. He wrote a really famous book about, not even a near-death experience, it was definitely a death experience. But he actually was struck by lightning. He was on the phone. It came through the lightning struck a telephone pole. This was in 1975, so this was before cell phones. It came through and it basically he got struck by lightning and thrown across the room and basically died. And there's a whole big story, and he wrote a very famous book called Saved by the Light. And I don't know, he said there was like a billion downloads or whatever, but a movie got made out of it in the 1980s. And he's had other, experiences where he actually had, I think it was a heart attack or a stroke, and he died. He died on an operating table once. He's had 4 times where he has died and come back. And he's in his mid-70s now. And this is a man who actually, every time he speaks, you can tell he's getting downloads from a higher source, not just our higher selves and the deep wisdom we have, but God's source. And the fact that we are part of God, we can tap into that source ourselves. This is a person who was at this retreat that I was at, and for 4 days we got to listen to him. We got to share, everybody that was there was a powerhouse, and it was just the most inspiring, amazing weekend that I got to participate in. And I just feel overwhelmed with gratitude that when we put ourselves in the right position energetically and everything else, then so many things fall into place that align us with others who are also on the same mission that you are. So, to me, it was an absolutely brilliant weekend, and I'm sure I'll be sharing stuff as time goes by, because there was so much. So I'll put a link to his book. Many of you have probably already read it. I'm a little still shocked that I had not heard his name and that I have not read his book. So I actually went on to YouTube and I watched a few of his interviews. And in fact, one of the interviews I found on a podcast I love called Next Level Soul. And he was interviewed a couple years ago, I think. And I was like, oh my goodness, because I love that channel. And I've dipped in and watched. He does a lot of podcasts, but I had not run across this one. So Saved by the Light by a gentleman named Dannion Brinkley. Amazing human being. Absolutely connected to God's source on every level. I think you will love his content if you don't already. So let's get to Jim Rohn, who I absolutely love. And I compiled a little list of some of my favorite teachings of his. In fact, I think there's 8. Let me see. There are 8. And to me, this has had a huge impact in the way that I walk through life. And the nice thing I love about him is he's just a cut to the chase, common sense guy. His voice and his words, they might feel a little old-fashioned if you look at some of his old videos or listen to some of his audio. But his wisdom and his advice and the things that he brings through to share with humanity are absolutely timeless. So I'm just going to go through these and share with you. So the first one, and I put this at the very top of the list, is the idea of taking personal responsibility. Because this can cover so many things, and it layers everything. Personal responsibility for our health, our work, our relationships, our money, everything that falls into the category of taking personal responsibility. You know, you get to take responsibility if you get your feelings hurt by someone. It's not on them. You know, you get to choose. If you have someone that says something to you, it hurts your feelings, you get to choose. Am I the victim, or do I get to say that has nothing to do with me? You know, there is power and so much peace when you take personal responsibility. You know, even just take the whole healthcare piece, your body and even your mind. You take responsibility for the health of your physical body. You are an empowered spiritual being that's able to walk through these, especially these chaotic times, by opting out of the systems that are broken. You know, in fact, you know, the systems aren't broken. They're doing exactly what they were designed to do. You know, in fact, one of the things that Dannion said, I believe, is the mind of something about the battle for the mind will be fought in healthcare. It's something like that. And this was something that was kind of said quite a few times over this past weekend. The battle will be for the mind will be fought in healthcare. I mean, think about that. If you have a broken, sick body, you are trapped in a system that's designed to keep you that way, sick. The system's designed that way. It's working perfectly, so it's not even a broken system. So personal responsibility. Now here's a couple of quotes of his that I absolutely love. You must take personal responsibility. You cannot change the circumstances, the season, or the wind, but you can change yourself. That is something you have charge of. You can't change the circumstances. You can't change it when it rains. Now, of course, with geoengineering, powers that be can change when it rains, but we don't need to go down that rabbit hole, right? But you can, there are circumstances that you can't change, but you can change yourself. And it comes down to you get to choose how you respond a lot of times, right? And then a second one I wrote down, we must all suffer one of two things. Now this one is my favorite quote of personal responsibility. We must all suffer one of two things, the pain of discipline or the pain of regret or disappointment. I mean, how many times have you said, I wish I would have, you know, eaten better or done these lifestyle steps so I don't get this particular lifestyle problem, like this disease or this issue. You know, you can take it, you know, for me, all during my 20s and half of my 30s, I fell away from the way I was raised. I still took some herbs and herbal supplements, but I ate really bad. I ate fast food, I ate junk food, I drank Diet Coke. I didn't, on the level that I know now, I didn't realize what I was doing to my body. And I was kind of blessed with a saving grace in the fact that I was teaching exercise classes. And I started teaching classes and being in the gym from when I was 18 years old because I fell in love with the gym, but I also fell in love with all the bad, crappy food out there. And what happened is I started having constipation and digestive issues. And I had serious problems with that. And so I went into this kind of like, okay, not only personal responsibility, but you can take this one of two ways. You can either suffer the pain of regret, or you can, what does it say? We all must suffer one of two things, the pain of discipline or the pain of regret or disappointment. So I can be disciplined and say, I'm not going to eat that. I'm not, I stopped drinking any type of soda. Let's see, probably 30 years at this point. I haven't been through a fast food restaurant in 30 years. And there's no judgment in everyone's journey. Maybe I think I might have had an ice cream cone maybe 10 or 15 years ago from our Arctic Circle, I think, when I was with a group of friends. And so like I said, this is not about judgment because we all get our own journey, right? So I really, really love the idea that from 50 years ago, Jim Rohn has been preaching about personal responsibility. Now, the second thing, and this one is really good and really easy at this point because of the technology that we're blessed with, and this is self-education. Okay, so one of the things that he really taught was that we need to invest in continuous learning and personal development. This is a continuous process. Until the day I take my last breath, I will always be working on helping become a better version of who I am in that given moment. You know, I think I shared with you a few videos ago, maybe not that long ago, but I decided right when I had my last birthday, which was, I just turned 63 a couple weeks ago, that I was going to do pull-ups. And I wanted to get myself to a point where I could do 50 pull-ups. And this is a huge goal because I've never been able to even do one full pull-up unless I'm on a machine that's called an assisted chin up, a pull-up, where it actually helps you take off part of your body weight so that you can do the movement of the exercise without all of the body weight that you're trying to lift up. And I've always loved this machine. It's a great machine in the gym. To me, it's a reason to go into the gym because this is a machine that most people don't have access and can't get in their house. But I have now set myself a goal. And to me, this comes along with personal development where you're always learning. So invest in continuous learning. Now, here's a couple of his quotes that I love. Formal education will make you a living. Self-education will make you a fortune. This is one of the quotes that actually has stuck with me from when I first heard of Jim Rohn, because I believe that formal education absolutely has its place, but there's so much access to information that there's no reason that we don't better ourselves with self-education. And there's so many things that we can learn, and we can even make a living at it. It doesn't have to be go to a school of higher education to get a piece of paper and then you never use it, right? And then another quote that I wrote about this is, don't wish it was easier, wish you were better. Don't wish for fewer problems, wish for more skills. Don't wish for less challenge, wish for more wisdom. Oh, that says it all, right? You know, don't wish it was easier, wish you were better. I mean, that is so great. Now, the third one is goal setting, you know, and this goes along perfectly with what I just said about my pull-ups. You know, let's take a person, you know, women don't have the upper body strength that men do. Someone my age, okay. I know many of you probably seen those little videos where they show someone that does a transformation of their body, and it's actually, they do a kind of a time lapse, and you get to see, you know, day 1 through day 100 or day 200 or a year, and you get to watch their whole transformation from unfit, overweight, whatever their situation is, to a person who is now fit, strong, healthy, and you get to watch this transformation in sometimes 1 or 2 minutes. And it's extremely motivating. And if you notice, they're completely different. And they might start where they can't even do one. They might, you know, as I was hanging on this machine, trying to pull myself up, I can pull myself about 2 inches up, which is a long way to go to get myself where my chin goes above the bar. But if I don't start, then I'm never going to get where my chin is above the bar, right? So you have to start somewhere. So set a goal. His teaching was this: set clear, concise, and achievable goals to guide your actions. You know, this has always been, you know, this is partly where journaling comes in too, because you get to actually write down things. You know, sit down and make a list of your goals. And a lot of people like to put goals at the beginning of a year, New Year's resolutions. But I say today, June 2nd, or whenever you're watching this, write down 5 goals. 5 goals that you want to accomplish by the end of this year. You know, why wait for a big for end of the year? Why wait for the first of the month or the first of the week? You know, when I was trying to clean up my diet in my 20s and 30s, and I would overdo it on a weekend, and I would just overindulge in all the things that were bad for me, I would tell myself every single Sunday night when I was feeling terrible and horrible about the dozen chocolate chip cookies that I had just eaten because I baked them and they were delicious, and, you know, all that stuff, and I was sick to my stomach, I would make a commitment to myself that Monday morning I was gonna go without sugar. I was gonna dial it in. I didn't need willpower because I felt so disgusting. And trust me, this isn't beating myself up. I obviously needed to go through all of that, the lessons I needed to learn, the place, where my body needed to be. But it's okay to set a goal, and to set a goal every single Monday. And you know what eventually happened? I eventually reached my goal to stop doing that. And I would tell you this, it's not about beating yourself up. Don't beat yourself up when you don't reach a goal. Put yourself in a good environment. I needed to stop bringing these foods that aren't good for me. I needed to take them out of my house. And I needed to unaddict myself. Boy, that's a whole nother topic, right? These foods and the processed foods, the fast foods, the junk foods, the soda, there is a group of scientists who are in their labs specifically designing the chemicals that go into these foods that are designed to addict you. So that it's almost like a hit of something that's terrible, like heroin. I've heard this before, that sugar has exactly the same addictive properties as heroin does. You start eating sugar, and you know how sometimes you just can't stop? Like when I used to eat a dozen cookies, come on. At this point, I can eat a cookie, and all I need is one. So there is a piece of unaddicting yourself this goes back to the pain of discipline. There can be some pain while if you're having that craving, get yourself out your door and walk around the block. Go on a walk. Get yourself out of the environment where you're being tempted. Anyway, I could talk about that for a while. So here's what he says about goals. This is one of his quotes. There's no telling what you can do when you get inspired by them. Okay? When you get inspired by one of your goals, there's no telling what you can do. There's no telling what you can do when you believe in them. And there's no telling what will happen when you act upon them. There's so much power in acting upon your goals. And just remember that every little step you take makes it's taking you further to your goal. And there's this great little meme that I've seen. I'm sure many of you have seen it before, where there's two men who are digging a tunnel, and you can see the tunnels, and there's one of them. They're both almost to the cave of gold that they're digging toward, and one gets discouraged right before he reaches the gold. And it's like you go and you go and you go, and you maybe don't see the results you want. Maybe you don't get to the gold as fast as you want, but it's like you're almost there. And every step has to, if say you're trying to do what I'm doing, with my pull-ups, what happens when I get to one full pull-up? Am I gonna quit and say, okay, I did it, I did one? No, I have set myself a goal that might seem unreachable, but I have to first get to that one pull-up. So it's like if you're gonna try to lose 50 pounds, which might seem really, really, really hard. I have a friend who actually needs to lose about 100 pounds. And what's going to happen the first pound is going to feel like, okay, it's going to be exhilarating, but then 2 pounds, then 3 pounds, and then 20 pounds. And if you've got 100 pounds to lose and you lose 20 and you still have 80, it might be like, oh, forget it. This is too hard. I have too long to go. I'm not eating all my favorite foods, and life is too short. So then you want to skip the pain of discipline, which will get you to your goal. So I have one more quote about his goals. So this is so great. If you don't design your own life plan, chances are you'll fall into someone else's plan. If you don't design your plan, you're going to fall into someone else's plan. You're going to go with the crowds and go with the flow and go with what is easier, right? And guess what they have planned for you? Not much. So that's the full quote. And I'm going to read it again because I kind of inserted in there. If you don't design your own life plan, chances are you'll fall into someone else's plan. And guess what they have planned for you? Not much. So you must design your own life plan. And I do not care how old you are or how young you are. If you're my age or you're older than me, if you're in your 70s and you're in your 80s, it does not matter. where you are. You can always improve your life for the better by 100-fold. Just try it and see. I guarantee that that's 100% true. Now, the fourth thing is discipline. And this was something that he really taught. He taught this like so beautifully. And it was with such humor and grace. You can't help but fall in love with Jim Rohn when you start watching him. I would suggest that you go onto YouTube and start looking and watching at some of his content. He's just the most beautiful human being, and his teachings never get old. So what he taught about discipline is this: cultivate discipline to achieve success and maintain it. Because it's not just about getting to your goal and reaching success in something, it's about then maintaining it. It's kind of like what happened with me when I finally figured out that all the food I was eating was making me so sick, and it was making my health so bad. It was like, okay, I'm not gonna get my health on track to this level and then not maintain it. And this is where the discipline comes in. It's like people who do cold plunges and they drink their smoothies and they get up early to go to the gym before work. Every single time you get out of those warm covers can be really hard for you. I mean, I really think there's a personality thing involved in there, where there are very disciplined people who will get up regardless of how painful it is or how early. But then I really do believe that it gets not only easier, but it gets preferable. I'm an early riser. I love getting out of bed early. I love, watching the sun rise. And it's especially true in the winter, but when it stays darker longer. But I also love the quiet of my kitchen, enjoying that warm cup of tea where it's just me, my higher self, my open journal, my meditation that I get. And I'm also preparing myself for my workout, because I work out in the morning, and that's my time, and that's when I do it. And there are times maybe when I need to work out around noon, or maybe I don't get my workout in until after work, which sometimes happens. But the thing is when you start to dial these in and the discipline kicks in, then they become enjoyable, right? So here's what he says about this. And I actually found 3 very short quotes because they're all epic. Discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishment. So you can have a goal, but you have to have the discipline to take the steps to achieve your goal, and then you've got an accomplished goal, right? And then here's the next one. The few who do are the envy of the many who only watch. It's the masses who watch the few. And there's no judgment, because everybody has their journey. Everybody has their life path. But to me, it goes back to the whole thing. I don't want to have the pain of regret and disappointment. I would rather have the pain of discipline, right? Now, the last one for the discipline, the quote is, for every disciplined effort, there is a multiple reward. When we are disciplined, the reward makes every single struggle, every single hard thing. I've reached a point where I love weightlifting. And because I've been in the gym my whole adult life, and I fell in love with it at a really early age, and because I taught classes for so long, where some of them were weightlifting classes, and you literally have to push yourself through the pain of that final rep where you're maybe doing a bicep curl or a shoulder press or a chest press where you don't think your muscles can press another time, but you're not only being encouraged to, you're going to do 15 chest press, and you literally get to that point of exhaustion where you're at 13 and you just don't know if you can do it. You bring it down from the 13th and you push, and your muscles are shaking and you just don't think you can do it, and you get to 14 and then you bring it back down and you've got one more. So there's nothing that compares to the way that feels. And if anything, I really want to encourage you and motivate you to take this beautiful physical temple and vessel and invest in it and suffer to the point where you're enjoying. I mean, there is something about it that you can't describe it until you experience it. In fact, one of my favorite quotes, and this is not exactly the perfect quote, but it might be close, is nothing tastes as good as being fit fills. So this is the whole nutrition piece of it. So no matter how good something tastes, and then you eat more of it and it just continues to taste good, nothing tastes as good as being, maybe let's change the word to healthy. Nothing tastes as good as being healthy feels. It feels 100 times better, and 1,000 times than anything would ever taste. And you only get the taste for a few seconds or a few minutes. You know, what is it? Once on the lips, forever on the hips. I mean, that's an old saying. But I've been around for a while, so these are some old quotes that kind of never get old, right? Okay, now the fifth one is time management. And he talked a lot about this. Use your time wisely and prioritize tasks that align with your goals. This was a big principle of things that he taught. And here are a couple of his quotes. Time is more valuable than money. You can get more money, but you cannot get more time. I remember him saying that over and over and over, several different lectures I watched of his, and he's absolutely right. Time is much more valuable than money because you can always get more money, but you can't get more time. In fact, there's a really great movie called In Time, and I don't know, 10 or 15 years old. It had Justin Timberlake in it, and literally your life was measured on a thing on your arm where you had a clock. You had like a time clock on your arm. Some of you might have heard of that movie, and maybe some of you have watched it or seen it. But it's a really valuable movie to tune into, to kind of remind yourself that time is much more valuable than money, right? And then a second quote he says is, learn how to be happy with what you have while you pursue all that you want. So this is living in a place of gratitude and presence. Learn to be happy with what you have while in the pursuit of everything that you want, right? I love that one. You know, learn to be happy in the moment. Be grateful for what you do have, right? And then the last one for time management, because I thought it was so good, and this is just a small one. Without a sense of urgency, desire loses its value. So true, right? Number 6 is the value of our relationships. Here's the gist of what he taught about this. Build and nurture meaningful relationships for personal and professional growth. I know this has been a real bedrock for me, and I've always been a person that for some reason I don't believe in burning bridges. And I truly believe that there are some people that no longer exist in my life, and different things, mostly relationships, but I've never burned the bridge. I've never taken it out, ever. It's more easing away. And what happens is there might be times where a relationship can evolve to the next level because the other person has also evolved to the level where you both are. So I think that that's a really important one. Now here's a couple of his quotes. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Now we've heard this 100 times. I do believe that he's the one who first coined that. And if you think about it, it's so true. It's so true. Here's another one. One person caring about another represents life's greatest value. When we care about someone and take care of them, like think about, a smile you give someone. Think about a hug you give someone. In fact, this last weekend, this beautiful human, Dannion Brinkley, that has had the most amazing experiences. One thing I will tell you about this person is he knows how to hug. This person will wrap you in a hug, and his thing is this: when you hug another human being, you are hugging yourself, because we're all a piece of God. We're all part of God's source. And he says in the life review that we all will go through, you will hug, you will see everything, every person, every situation. And he said, when I have my final life review, I want to be in a place of just hugging and love. This is seriously, I've always been a hugger, and I will usually read the situation if it's a new person, and I can read their energy. But I've many times hugged people that I've just met, and because I see the God source in them. I feel their beautiful energy. So that one I really love. Now here's some of the quotes that go along with that. Well, after the 5 people you spend the most time with. One person can, oh, I read this one already. The last one. The walls we build around us to keep sadness out also keeps out the joy. Oh, okay. Some of these are so massive. The walls of protection we build around ourselves to keep out the sadness. We put a layer over our heart. We got hurt by something. We got hurt by a sad situation. And I've shared with before, I've shared that 3 years ago, in fact, it was just barely 3 years for the first one in May, and then in July, I lost 2 young nephews. And one was to suicide and one was to a motorcycle accident. And the grief that layers over, especially my sister and my brother, is undescribable. And to me, as the auntie, we all encounter these very, very difficult, undescribable moments of sadness. And the walls that we put over our heart and our whole self to protect ourselves can sometimes also protect us from joy, but we don't want to be protected from joy. And I'm not saying that you forget them or stop grieving for them or whatever that looks like, because I know this is a very human, intense emotion, and it's very real, and we love these people. But one of the things Dannion actually said over and over is we never truly die. How can you kill spirit? How can you kill consciousness? Well, you can't. So we never truly die. That piece of us that makes us us never dies. And if you think about that, and you think about the sadness that we put around our heart for maybe losing a loved one, I've lost both my parents. I lost one of my Native American siblings 30 years ago. And there's been loss. We all have loss, and deep, deep, dreadful loss in our families and our close friendship circles. And you watch the things that happen with wars, and we feel this. We build this wall because it's so painful. But I think that if we realize that we never die, because you can't kill consciousness, you can't kill spirit, that might be something to wrap your head around. And if it's interesting to hear that, especially if it drops into your soul and it resonates, right? So I really love that one. Now, number 7 out of 8 is work ethic. Now, this was something that Jim Rohn talked about and preached about. Oh, I'm at 37 minutes. Holy cow. If you're still here, serious kudos, guys. Here's me. It's almost like a morning cup of coffee with Jane, right? Okay, so I'll hurry through these last 2. So this one is work ethic. What he taught is to develop a strong work ethic and take consistent action toward your goals. Work ethic. I will tell you, this is something that my parents taught us on a really high level. And we never felt like we were being put out by it. When you come from a family that's so large, I am second oldest of 14 kids. Now, my mom was pregnant with my youngest brother when I was pregnant with my youngest son, because I'm second to from the top. So there wasn't always 14 kids when I was being raised. There was about 10 or 11. And then at my first wedding, when I was 18 years old, my mom was pregnant with my little sister. And then she had another baby, my youngest brother. So there was always a huge group of family, and my dad always had people and friends and acupuncturists and chiropractors and iridologists. My dad had this great group of friends that was always dropping in and coming in. And of course, we all had our friends. And, this is all part of the work ethic, where you have to pitch in. You have to be a part of the organism that is the community, right? So here's what he wrote. Here's some of his great quotes about work ethic. Success is nothing more than a few simple disciplines practiced every day. Make it simple. Don't overwhelm yourself. Do simple steps every day. It's like me with my pull-ups. I can pull myself 2 inches higher than and then it'll be 3 inches, and then it'll be 4 inches, and then it'll be, halfway up to the chin. So it's all awesome. Here's another one. Success is neither magical nor mysterious. I really love that. Success is the natural consequence of consistently applying the basic fundamentals. Okay? That's it. That's success. It's neither magical nor mysterious. It's like losing weight for the huge majority of us. It's moving and watching what you put in your body. What do you put in? And how much do you move? And of course, there's layers. There's layers to that. And layers, because we're all different, right? And the final one that I wrote down on work ethic is this. Motivation alone is not enough. If you have an idiot and you motivate him, now you will have a motivated idiot. You know, I thought for that would just add a little bit of humor, because I think it is not just about motivation. You have to take all these things, the discipline, you have to have work ethic, you have to realize that you are responsible, you know, for everything. Now, the last one is attitude and mindset. And this was actually something that I really think he taught beautifully. And his basic thing for this is his main teaching was to maintain a positive attitude and cultivate a success-oriented mindset. Cultivate that. Always stay in the gain. Always stay with the glasses half full. Always put a positive on what's happening. You know, this is a growth mindset. You can take yourself and have a limited mindset. And it's like the victim mentality versus a creative mentality. You can always look at the bad thing. You can always look at something that some situation or some person did to you, rather than look at it as what it did for you or what it did, you know, because of you. Here are 3 quick quotes. Either you run the day or the day runs you. You can choose. If you first thing you get up, you open up your phone, you check your email, you scroll through social media, the day now is running you, because you haven't started it with a routine that actually is going to put you into a position to become the person that you want to become. Whether it's your workout, your meditation, your grounding, your the nutritious food you feed your body, whatever that is. You know, you either run the day or the day runs you. And I found that if you tune in to your technology first thing, because I've personally experienced this, you know, I can get caught, and I'm very strategic about this now, and I don't let myself, but I used to get caught watching YouTube videos while I was doing my little morning ritual. And after I would do the meditation, I would get my tea and I would write in my journal. Then I would open up my laptop and I would check my emails, and then I would get caught on YouTube. And you know, you can get caught on some of these platforms forever. And they're interesting stuff. So the thing is don't let yourself get sucked in and let your day be dictated by the technology. In fact, I heard a trend that's going around right now that I found really fascinating. There's a lot of young people that are opting out of having their phones with them all the time and recording every moment, because a lot of kids were raised with parents who were literally recording every action. And some people, young people, were raised by people who were recording every action that they did, because maybe they were a social media influencer, and the child becomes part of that, and so the kids are like, I don't want this to be a part of my life. And I think if, as adults, we can incorporate that where we leave our phone at home when we go out to dinner with friends, not leave it in the car. Literally, can you leave your phone at home? How does it make you feel? Does it make you feel anxious? Then you need to practice leaving your phone at home more often, because it's really important that you do that, because you can let the day run you, or you can run the day. Second quote for attitude and mindset. Your life does not get better by chance. It gets better by change. Your life gets better when you make changes. It's not lucky. It's not magical or mysterious. It's made better by change, by the changes that you make. And you have control over that. And if you don't have a control over a certain physical situation, you have control over the way that you look at it and the way you perceive it, and the spin you choose to put on it. And then the last one here is the more you care, the stronger you can be. You know, I really think that when we incorporate some of these things that have been around and available to us forever or for long decades worth of time, this content and body of work, it can really change the way that we walk through the world. And as we watch things change exponentially, you know, the world is shifting whether you come along or not. You know, I love that. I think that it's the most amazing time to be here. And I know if you're watching this, you probably agree that it's amazing. You know, especially if you made it to the end, 45 minutes. Wow, I think this is the longest I've ever just sat and turned on the phone or turned on my camera and started chatting at myself. But thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you got to the end of this. I always find that whenever I sit and I reflect on some of these deep truths and things that I know to be true, for me especially, I always get so much benefit out of it. So I thank you for tuning in, those of you who tune in every single week. I feel like I get my own expansion and growth by sharing these things with you. So I just want to say thank you, especially those of you who tune in every week. And I adore your comments. I read every one of them. I'm the one who responds to every one of them. And life is beautiful. We are living through amazing times and indeed a great awakening where we get to take charge of how we walk through it. So thanks for tuning in, you guys. I hope you have a beautiful first week of June. And I would love to hear if you have a crazy goal like I do. What would be a crazy goal that would seem like, how can I ever reach that? Because even just listening to myself talk about pull-ups and chin-ups and doing 50 of them, I kind of think, I must be crazy. Anyway, I love you guys tons. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next time.